I'd like to show you how I made a paper template that I used to build a ceramic bonsai pot. I have my tools, so let's get started. First, I make a sketch to get an idea of what I want the pot to look like. This pot will be rectangular. I want to have a raised edge along the bottom, and then I also want a lip around the top edge. Don't worry too much about the quality of your sketch. If you're more comfortable making a diagram rather than a three-dimensional drawing, that's absolutely fine. Now that I have my first sketch made out, I make a diagram myself along the top corner here and make some of my first decisions about size. This is going to be about 8.5 inches by about 6 inches. With these decisions made, I now want to make a full-scale diagram of the front of the pot. I like to start by marking off a line that's going to be the basis of my sketch, mark the center point, and then measure out that 8.5 inches that I decided would be the width of my pot. As I'm making my sketch, I want to think about construction. I know I'm going to be building this with 1/4-inch slabs of clay, so I measure and mark out those 1/4-inch slabs for the bottom, at the top as well for the lip. I rough out the angle that I'm going to use on the sides, and I also use some dotted lines to mark out the thickness of the slabs there, so I make sure I think about how this will be constructed. With this basic shape, I take some measurements and decide to adjust so I can cut the base and the lip from the same slab. To do this, I need to increase the angle so that the lip of the pot is a little wider and the base of the pot will fit inside that opening. Now the opening at the top is the same as the length of the bottom piece, about 8 3/4 inches. With the 1/2 inch lip all the way around at the top, it's about 9 3/4 inches, and the height of the pot is going to be 1.5 inches. That drawing will serve as the template for the long side of the pot. Now I want to make a template for the base and the lip. I start by marking the center lines, and then I mark the measurements that will match the first diagram. The long side measurements are 8 3/4 and 9 3/4 to the outside edge of the lip. And if you remember, I decided to make the pot about 6 inches wide, so the width will be 6 inches and 1 inch more at 7 inches for the outside of the lip. Remember to always measure and make 2 marks to keep your lines parallel as you draw a diagram like this. It's always a good idea to label the parts that you're drawing so that you don't get them mixed up after you get them cut. Now I just need to make a template for the short side, 1.5 inches high, just like the long side, and I convert some of the measurements to mark the same angles as on the long side so that they'll come together to make nice corners. Next, I cut out all of my template pieces and decided to mark the drainage holes and the wire holes on the base. Finally, I make a template for the foot. I fold a piece of paper in half to be the corner of the foot and then cut an angle so that the foot will bend away from the pot a little bit as it rests. I draw the line, cut out the shape, and you see that that shape, when it's up against a square angle, will tip out a little bit like that. I always like to take a second to make sure all the pieces fit together, lining up the sides with the base and flipping them over to line them up with the lip. Looks like that should do the trick.